Morning. Tzamach. My son's birthday is tonight. It's also the Tzamach Tzedek's birthday tonight, Erev Rosh Hashanah. So I found a very cool pasuk, a verse that describes the name of Tzamach Tzedek, which the Rabbi says is the name of Moshiach, Tzamach Tzedek, and the sources for them. It's a very cool verse because it's very hard to understand. Righteousness is described as being worn as a jockstrap, to put it simply. Ezer Masnav. You're an intimate garment. The Malbim writes about this, that what does it mean that righteousness will be his girdle? I don't know what a girdle is, so I had to say what I grew up with in those days. Yeah. So Tzedek, V'haya Tzedek Azur Masnav. We say that Moshiach will wear righteousness. So Malbim says, what does it mean wear it like an azer? Something that girds your loins, a girdle. Why would you describe that as righteousness? So he says that you're trusted in the most intimate places, basically. You're trusted to be someone that with integrity. So here it's talking about how this applies to the righteousness of Moshiach, is that he cares about people. And that's the latter part of the verse in Yeshaya 11:5, Isaiah. It says that he will wear faithfulness. So the faithfulness is when you are talking about your most intimate garments, the Malbim writes, that even there you express dignity. That is, in terms of justice, caring about other people. That's what he writes. It's the most beautiful thing. That's the Malbim. The Rebbe quotes the Malbim. Someone, when I mentioned the Malbim, the only thing, he couldn't talk about anything that I quoted. Only the fact that he doesn't know whether the Rebbe believes in him or not. And here, firstly, I found 2 or 3 recently sightings of, the Malbim. So I don't like. Welcome. You can't attack the person. Don't do ad hominem attacks on people. Sean, welcome. If you have a problem with them, talk about their ideas. Don't figure out who holds by the guy or whatever. That is so superficial. Welcome, Sean. It's so good to see you. I'm repeating myself, but it is. So that verse is something that I wanted you to check out. I would read you the Malbim inside, but I don't have my iPad here, and I'd have to fiddle around with it. Wonder whether you could hear me or not. Good morning. So Moshiach is called Tzemach, the name of my son. Tzemach Yisrael, we called him. I think it's all about the Yisrael Baal Shem Tov being flourishing in the world. That Tzemach means to flourish. We call him Tzemach Yisrael because the idea of what the Baal Shem Tov stands for, welcome, Gadi. The Baal Shem Tov stands for something that is so beautiful and so needed, especially in our times. Caring about another person, not to tell them what to do, for example, about what face. They're going to say the other way. And if you care about other people, you wouldn't care to stifle your own breathing, etc. So it's all a debate, but I think that there's a more real, mature way of looking at this in terms of human rights. So Ish Tzamach Shmoi, his name is Tzemach. We say about Moshiach. So it's a type of flourishing. And then the Tzedek, we interpret the second part of the third Lubavitch's Rebbe's name, or how he's known. He wrote a book called Tzamach Tzedek, book of Halacha, I believe. Tzamach Tzedek is, so we have the sprouting. Here we describe it as his name. It's the descriptive name of Moshiach, and we'll maybe say in a minute what it means. But to focus here, we said on tzedek. What does it mean? Righteousness is when you care about another person and you look for his benefit when you're trying to judge. Remember, the reason why King Solomon was gifted with so much wisdom is because, and the reason why he achieved the whole zenith of the Jewish empire was his inheritance and his continuity he can perpetuated. So the reason why he merited all that is because he wanted wisdom to bring peace among people, so you could have a justice. That's what the undergarment that's talking about there in Isaiah 11:5. Okay, by a tzedek azar masnav, he girds his loins with righteousness. Okay, so that's talking about a name. A name is a descriptive of what the person, the mission of the person. But what about the person himself? That has, of course, been the focus of Chabad, I think, from day one. Focus on the person. Here is one reference to that, but, well, there we go. After 10 minutes, they start changing my driving settings, my seating settings. So, the personality, here they call it something more mystical sounding, Atzmos von Moshiach Tzidkenu. What is the core idea of Moshiach Tzidkenu? Of this force of Messiah, this personage? What is, then he quotes that, what I've been speaking about for the past few days, that the Tzemach Tzedek's own writing on this, about the mitzvos minui melech, the mitzvah of appointing a king in his derech mitzvah. We've been speaking about that for days, but here it's where it's quoted. So finally I found the source what brought me to it. And it's very appropriate for Rosh Hashanah, of course, about the coronation of the king. So there's a name, which is the reputation, the purpose, and then there's the person itself, the atzmos of the person. So the reason why the personage of Moshiach is so important is because he is a walking miracle. He is the embodiment of the core identity of the divine within a body. Not like David HaMelech, who was the embodiment of Malchus of Atzilus, the highest world's sovereignty embodied in a person. Moshiach is going to be the flourishing of that idea, to accept in a way its own coronation. It graduates to the next level. David HaMelech, the warrior, wins the war and sends the Messiah to embody that victory on earth of the Dira Bataktainim in a human being. That's why, okay, we spoke about it, like, why does it have to be a human being? The reason why it has to be a human being is mostly to tell you that there's a guy that knows a little bit more than you, and he has dvekus that is in the core that you don't even want to go there because it's so powerful. So that's Mashiach, and that's why you have a spark of that, because you have Ma'edachol, you have the ability to transcend yourself, and that itself is an embodiment of the messianic mission. So it does apply to each person. In fact, it happens on an individual basis prior to the general messianic era. Every person has to go through an individual journey through this. Some people will be fast-tracked because it will be getting too late. You see how the world events are speeding up and not slowing down. Why do you think we have to talk faster and faster now? Things are moving very fast. And even looking at apocalyptic. So that's enough said about all that. I mean, yeah, if I was a politician, I would just say human rights. That's it. That's all I care about now. Just give me my freedom and forget about everything else. It's not important. Don't tell me I need a passport to do anything. To get to broccoli, I have to have a passport. That is totalitarianism. That is a sheep walking to a slaughter. You cannot go there. You cannot live in such a world. I agree with Michael Green. So he became the clown of that idea, but he's a genius in that idea. So if you care about that, go to him and figure out what to do. Okay, because I'm more interested in this at the moment. I think this is actually the answer to dealing with that. Mashiach is a force where you, through your prayer to God, you transcend adversity. Meaning, if you cannot live in a country that has two extreme policies, daven to God and it will change. Why? Because you have the power that is equal to Moshe Rabbeinu when it comes to prayer. That would astonish anybody to hear if they really understood what that means. Everyone says, "Oh, go to some tzaddik, like the holy people. I mean, the religious people. I mean, go to the highest guy and let him pray for you." It's not so. It is all in your hand, and it's here. The Rebbe says miyad. It's always immediate. So maybe we'll get to that because that is very hard for me to understand. But if you look at it in light of what we've been speaking about several times, I'm going to read it again. It's that important. There is a retroactive thing going on. Here the Rebbe speaks about miyad, immediacy. We'll come to that in a minute. I've given examples how it could be simply the internet spreads ideas so fast, etc. But listen to the Rebbe's words. You should live in such a way with the redemption that it affects the past. As afopi vas berega ze mamash is Mashiach adayin leba. That even though in this very moment there is not this general global phenomena of Mashiach aware and everybody, not everyone's woke, is b'shas ervet kumen berega lachreze. But since he is destined to come the next moment, veter ibermachen durch areinstellen dem Aleph von Alufa Shalolam, he can bring about that by bringing the Aleph into the Geula, the Alufa Shalolam represented by the letter Aleph, into the word Geula, into exile, you bring Geula, so you have a redemptive experience. So that has to happen at some point. Welcome. At some point, it's going to happen to every single person. Knowing that that's going to happen allows you to sort of draw that into the current moment. So the current moment was previously or seen as a moment of exile. All you have to do is say the Aleph, I'm bringing the Aleph in. Bring it in, bring it in, bring it in, one of my friends sings. He's talking, put the Radla on the Metzach, bring it in. Put the Rashis, the Leisvado, the highest, into the Metzach, the forehead, different spiritual part, and bring it in. And he goes like this, it's very cute. So you have the power through bringing an Aleph, which is a recognition of this Alufa Shalolim, this master of the universe, into that moment, fixes the previous moment. So retroactively, you live through a redemption. Okay? Retroactively affecting the moments preceding it, von Goyla, from the exile, that now becomes appropriated, annexed into redemption. So you affect your past. Welcome, Heidi. You affect your past by now accepting the fact that there's a God in the world, there's a creator of the world called the Lufa Shalolam. It's an Aleph, a letter Aleph. All you have to do to change a Goyla to an exile, a feeling of you're not in touch with your Godhead, which means that you have infinity at your fingertips. The only thing separating you from that is miyad. So let's go back to miyad. What is miyad? What is this immediacy? It's a force of three things. Moshe, Yisrael, David. So we have the Baal Shem Tov, Tzemach Yisrael is my son's name. So we spoke about Tzemach Tzedek and Tzemach Yisrael. One of the three attributes of the word miyad, immediate, is Yisrael. Baal Shem Tov, the Rebbe says. So miyad, you have Moshe. We've spoken a lot about Moshe. Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, I couldn't speak enough about him. The most important figure that has lived for centuries is the Baal Shem Tov. To me, hands down. Why? Because he introduced something so important. It's good to be a good person. If people forget that now, that is total exile. Be a good person. Then tell me about what you have to swing chickens over your head. Then David HaMelech Miyad is Moshe, the power of Torah, I think we'll say. Maybe if it enumerates each. Yisrael, the Baal Shem Tov, Pnimi Torah, be a good person and have good goals. And David HaMelech, victory, or the possibility here. It's more, victory. As the dry Moshe Yisrael Baal Shem Tov David Malka Mashiach. Here the Rebbe translates David as Mashiach himself. Zayin verbunden mit miyad henu golim. They are all connected with the concept of immediate redemption. Because that's what Rambam writes, the writing in halacha, in the legal aspect of Torah, that you have to see yourself as an equal balance. Everything's equal. You do one good thing, you're redeemed. Moshe hu goel rishon hu goel acharin. So Moshe is the redeemer. Yisrael Baal Shem Tov Mashiach hat im geantwortet. Ev sein Shaila Emasa Asimar. Mashiach asks the Baal Shem Tov. It was Erev Rosh Hashanah, I believe, or I think it was Erev Rosh Hashanah. Okay, that's also fitting perfect here. That's when he had this trip. He describes it in detail, his mystical trip to heaven, stairway to heaven, and he comes to the chamber of Mashiach. So he gets to ask the soul of Mashiach, "When are you coming, Master?" And he answers, when your well springs are spread out, telling the Baal Shem Tov. And David Malka Mashiach, was durch im kommt die Geula mitzvah shlema b'peil. David is the warrior to bring this. That is the force of bringing it into the world. So what are the three things? We described Moshe as the Goel Rishon. I think it's because he gave us the Torah, so therefore, and he's the Goel Achrein, because that's the power that you're going to use to bring redemption to the world. So that's Moshe. Yisrael Baal Shem Tov, we say, what is he? He's about spreading the inner dimension of the Torah, which is the pneumius of the Torah, the inner dimension, the heart of it. And then you have David Malka Mashiach, the idea of putting it into practice and being victorious. So do we have a hint yet? Let's read a little more. An in dem Wort miyad stehen alle drei zusammen in an ein und einzige Wort. So here you have all these three forces in one word. The ability to have immediate redemption is these three forces coming together. An Wort was Parusha is miyad gleich, immediate, in ein und einzige Rega, in a single moment, beweist, dass as alle drei seinen an innen und einzige Nekuda, the Nekuda von Geula miyad. So this shows you that these three forces coming together is what we mean by immediate redemption. Again, what are they, Moshe, Yisrael, and David? What are these three forces? You have the power, the Goel Rishon, which is Torah. Then you have the Pnimis Torah of the Baal Shem Tov. Here we put Baal Shem Tov on par with Moshe Rabbeinu in a sense. And then David Malka Mashiach, the chosen, the beloved. David is the potential for Mashiach, which is victory. That, when you have those three things in mind, that is immediate redemption. So you're going to go from the stairway to heaven from now on in this world. And a little bit more. And then Kuda tiled Zechaif, dry pratim. So it has these three aspects. And Davka and them Seder from Moshe Yisrael Baal Shem Tov and David Malka Mashiach. The order is important. The Keach Geula kommt von Moshiach Goel Rishon and Goel Achrein. The power comes from Moshiach, who was the first redeemer, and Moshe Kibul Torah Mesinai Masra Chulu. And Moshe was the person to receive the Torah, which is the power to bring Mashiach. But das is Kela Kol Torah Kula, because it includes the entire Torah, Koma Shetalmid Vasik Asid L'Chadish, everything that a future scholar will eventually innovate and bring into the world and teach. Kela Eik Der Gilui von Pnimis Torah, including the revelation of the inner dimension of the Torah, but even von Hafatzas Mayanas Chutza Durch dem Baal Shem Tov, through the spreading of the well springs of the Baal Shem Tov. Was durch dem is Asimar David Malka Mashiach, that this brings about this coming of the Master, which means good times. And it speaks a bit more about the good times in terms of there's three that experienced it in this world already, the Olam Haba, which is descriptive of the name of the coming year, Plois Ba. The coming year of Pei Base. I'm not going out of Pei Aleph without Plois and with the spectacular redemption everyone deserves. Because the Rebbe said, Plois Arena this year, the transformation of the wrath of all this terror. We have to expect that, like you could expect the sun to come up. Everyone has to experience it. The thing that gets me to wonder, Whether there is a more complete version of it is because what the Rebbe did in Tafshin and Aleph, which the Rebbe likened this year to 30 years prior, 1991, going into the next year to Tafshin and Beis, he spoke about it achieving niflois bakol in everything, and therefore it has a more pervasive impact. There, in other words, I'm suggesting I don't want to give up on everyone's ploy surrender for this year. I'm not. I don't mean to, but I'm saying if you could look forward to another, where do you go from there? It's when that blossoms forth to every single person on the planet. Okay, so here's my proof that you have this power. This is called B'kol Mekol Kol is the forces of the Avos. The three that had the Olam Haba in their time are Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So that are all in the world Kol, which is incidentally 50. So the 50 years, the Shar Nun is important, but it's expressive of every facet. So that's called B'kol Mekol Kol. That includes Ruchnius, spiritual, and Gashmius, physical, experience of having the blessings of Hashem and everything. B'kol Mekol Kol Shleishehit Iman Hakadosh Baruch Ba'elam Hazem Ein Olam Haba. Three that God gave them a preview experience of the world to come in this world. So they had this success in everything, spiritual and physical. Mit'ale Perush and Shebadavar, in all senses of the word. Anhaimedik from the Perush HaIkari, beginning with the main interpretation as Noch in the letzte Regalim from Galus, that's still in the last moments of exile. Zal jeder Id, every Jew should haben b'chol mekol kol, have everything, as alle seinen Yanim zal sein ba'efen achi teiv achi mushlam, that everything in his life goes with ultimate swagger. Hachi teiv achi mushlam, the best and most complete. Le chasru shum teva, without lacking anything good. Oh, and then maybe a word on Tzemach and we'll be done. Tzamach Tzedek and Tzemach Yisrael. Birthdays tonight. As Teku from Yad Mamish, Erev Rosh Hashanah. Immediately on Erev Shana, Rosh Hashanah, which is the last day of Plais Arena, we go to Plais B'Kol, wonders in everything next year, pervasive, all-encompassing. This year was the possibility. We had this, the remez of, okay, it's also about falling, speaking about the next year. But those who experienced the three select people, just the Avos had that perfection. But here we say on Erev Rosh Hashanah, Zeh, Yom Huledes from Tzemach Tzedek, the birthday of the Tzemach Tzedek, Vert Niskal Moshiach the Kain, Moshiach is going to be revealed. Ba'ifim fu marbetz boy va'imar zeh, in a way of as the verse says, pointing with your finger and saying this. That is what everyone has to do in their life. No, say this was my ploy, Sereno. You better be preparing that statement, but being blown away as the year comes to its spectacular finale, with whatever victories you're having and successes and redemption in your life, you should see it ploy, Sereno, wonders in that very area, the thing you care about most. As Moshiach vert angerufen Tzemach, Moshiach, as he's called, this flourishing. Is Moshiach vert angerufen Tzedek. That's going to segue into the Tzedek, the righteousness, being governing the world with that kind of select virtue. Is Moshiach vert angerufen Yesek Yitzchak. Der Name von Quaitbuches Mordechan Admon Asti the Reinu, but Edviker, is Moshiach vert angerufen David Malch Mashiach, zusammen mit Moshe Rabbeinu, Goel Rishon and Goel Achron. Have a great day. Great for you tuning in. Thanks so much.